So, as we've discussed, detection engineering is going to play a huge role in any SOC success, right? And who's doing it may change and how we do it may be changing, but it's one thing we absolutely have to get right, right? And to get something right, we have to know how to measure that thing to make sure it's working, right? And measurement is the key here. But in order to measure something, you have to have a very clear understanding of exactly what it is and criteria for success and understanding and interpreting all of the data that you may be generating. And so turning that understanding into action is something that can be very difficult, but that's exactly what our next talk is about. So without further delay, I will hand it over to Alejandro Houspanossian and Agustin March from McAfee. Take it away, you two.
Thank you, and welcome to this talk today. We are super excited about this, and thank you for the opportunity, right? So I think I have control, right, to move this. Give me one sec. Yeah, okay, let's see if it works. It's not changing. Yeah. Okay, so we are software engineers, right? So Agustin is more focused on data engineering. He has a strong software development background. He builds data pipelines for security analytics. In my case, I have been doing software project management and also engineering management for several years. And eventually I started working on detection engineering, right? And in the last, I would say 3-4 years, I started developing some detections, right? And then I started doing some threat hunting as well, right? So I guess this is gonna help the people to understand, where we come from, right? Okay, so let's see if we can move to the next one, right? So let's think a bit about the context, right? And let's think about the threat landscape, right? So there are so many attacks, every day. If you think of the type of attacks that we have seen on the last, 10 months or 18 months or in the last 2 years, right? So it's huge, right? So of course, a lot of ransomware attacks, right? We have huge impact supply chain attacks, right? For instance, the SolarWinds hack, right? Every day we see, new tools that the threat actors can use, new loaders or remote access trojans, or, of course, we see a lot of Cobalt Strike for sure, right? So as I was working on this presentation, I saw this this tweet from Christian Beck. He's from McAfee ATR team, right? And so this is only for the first week of September. And this visualization is telling us about the ransomware campaigns that are active only for 1 week, right? So I don't know, if you want to have a positive attitude, you can think of, oh, there is so much learning opportunities for everyone, right? There's so many things happening, and of course we have a great community of people that is sharing IoCs, is sharing the methods and the tools that the threat actors are using, right? So, and of course we have threat analyst reports that are with great detail, right? So the question that we're gonna try to cover today is, okay, are we getting better, right? Are we getting better at protection, detection, or whatever you do as part of the Blue Team community, right? So at the McAfee AC3 team, right, we believe that there is an opportunity to leverage existing knowledge in order to be in a better position to face the current threats and the upcoming threats, right? So we think that this is about knowledge and about sharing, right? So we have this beautiful picture over here, right? So the main goal for us with the threat sightings, it's about empowering the Blue Team, right? Empowering the Blue Team with actionable knowledge, right? So if some of you is feeling sometimes overwhelmed, right? So we think that this is right for you. We think that this can help you to have, or to feel like you have superpowers, right? And it's the power of knowledge at the end of the day, right? So we have this quote from Carlos Diaz. He's a principal engineer here with us at the AC3 team, right? And he put it very nicely, right? So he said that we need to express the acquired knowledge about threats in a way that others can understand the threats. because if you can understand the threat, you can take actions and achieve your objectives against the threat, right? So before moving forward, what I want to say is that there is an initiative from the MITRE Ingenuity team that is called ATT&CK, right? So we are early contributors to that. We have been working on that for the last, I would say, 2 years. And the focus there is a bit different, right? So that initiative is about, collecting and aggregating TTP telemetry, right? To produce insights and statistics that can help the blue team, to make decisions, right? We have adapted some of those ideas in order to focus on this specific problem, right? How we can, get better, at dealing with threats, and specifically the method that we are going to use in order to reach that is we're going to spend time looking at the threats, right? We're going to represent the knowledge that we have of threats in a way that others can understand as well. And we're going to, try to, add as many details as possible in order to make this knowledge actionable, right? So, for instance, we want to empower someone to improve their detections based on the knowledge that is delivered on a threat sightings. Or maybe you will get ideas of, I could do some threat hunting based on this, right? Because you will have details about what is the specific behavior that is being reported on this sighting, right? Okay, so let's try this example here, right? So this is a challenge for you, right? So this is a command line, right? So, and I guess some of you will recognize this right away, and some others maybe not, right? There is no reason to know about this command line after all, right? So, so this is a command line. This is something that you will find in your logs, maybe on your SIEM, and of course on your EDR solution if you have one, right? So what is this command line telling me, right? If I will tell you what happened to me 2 years ago when I first saw this command line. Okay, it looks strange. Yeah, there is an encoded command over there which I redacted. It's a long command. I mean, it's a long string, right? But what was my action? Of course, right? Google, right? So there are several substrings that I can look for, right? And if you take a look at the results, everything is pointing in the direction of a malicious PowerShell script or malicious activity. Some of the articles specifically talk about one of the tools that's called Cobalt Strike, which is a post-exploitation tool, right? So in this case, without extra knowledge, right, I was able to realize that something is going on, right, and probably I need to investigate more, right? So interesting thing is that I haven't analyzed the payload yet. So this is an encoded payload that you can use CyberChef. This is a great tool for decoding it, right? But even if you do not if you focus on the first part of the string, you can realize that this is fishy, right? So we need to investigate this, right? So let's say that challenge 1 is is passed, right? I was successful, working on this, right? So now let's think about this other challenge number 2. Okay, there are 2 activity events here. The first one apparently talks about process execution, maybe, right? So yeah, and the second event is about a process file creation, apparently, right? So what happens when you put this in front of a person that has not been exposed to this yet, right? Yeah, I was asking, scratching my head, and okay, what is admin dollar? Once again, right? What is run dealer 32? What is DL host, right? Because I know I have seen many times, but it's that thing that it's working, but you do not know why or what for, right? So at that point is that what where we introduce threat sightings, right? So let's assume that we have a senior analyst on the team that can hand over some piece of material that talks about some specific threat that you have seen and that has been represented using a threat sighting, right? So in this case, this threat sighting talks about execution with Cobalt Strike, right? And also mentions things like process injection. And in particular, it talks about these two LOLBAs, right? RunDLR32 and the DLL host, right? And you see that there is also an ID over there, right? And then a list of behaviors, right? That are part of this observation, right? So on the details here, we can see, okay, there is some file execution. So there is connections to named pipes. There is also more process execution. There is process injection and so forth and so on, right? So exactly this is a threat sighting. And now the people the person that is facing this challenge now has a lot of information and it can start connecting the dots, because even if it is not the same incident, of course it's not, there are some keywords that are shared with the initial challenge that we saw in the previous screen, right? So I want you to spend 1 second thinking about this, right? So now the person which is maybe more senior has provided this guidance, provided this information, and can go back to do her show, right? And now the new analyst can start doing self-learning, right? That's the idea. And we are going to walk through the specific content of this threat sighting, right? So okay, let's do the reading, right? So a threat sighting has descriptions about behaviors, right? And as you can see here, there is activity details. So in this case, we are highlighting on the red square here, there is a process creation event, right? So this is the process that we were, that we need to analyze. And we have the parent process, in this case, services. We have the file hash, the full command line, right? So this is typically what you will get from your EDR, for instance, right? And then you also have more context information, right? So admin $, it's one of the default administrative network shares in Windows, right? It's hidden and links to the Windows folder, right? And it is typically used for deploying software remotely, right? Makes sense, right? So if you look at this at the beginning of the path over here, yeah, if you see that as part of the process execution, yeah, it is likely about remote execution somehow, right? And then you have one more note that says that Cobalt Strike likes to name binary files with this specific pattern, and this is exactly the pattern that you are matching with your file name over here, right? So this is the point where the knowledge that the more experienced people has, is now available to more people, right? That's, I guess, the key of this presentation. Right? And something that you will find also is the reference to the MITRE matrix, right, with the technique ID and the tactic, right? So apparently it is about execution with Windows service, right? Okay, so we will move forward to the next behavior, right? And in this case, this is about apparently the process that we are analyzing has connected to a named pipe. Cool. Right? So what a named pipe is, okay, it is a mechanism on Windows in order to do inter-process communication, right? And you know what? Cobalt Strike likes to use it a lot. And in particular, the name that this named pipe has matches one of the default names that Cobalt Strike likes to use, right? Of course, at this point is, if you are operating a Cobalt Strike, you can change this very easily. I mean, you can do that, but still, we still see this on the wild, that many threat actors do not change it. So you will still find many times the default configurations, right, during a real investigation, right? Okay, so let's move on with our investigation on this sighting. And now we have another behavior. It's about process execution again. We have our process over here that has has triggered the execution of run DLR32. Okay, and we have nodes, right? We have it says that okay, it is part of Windows. It is used to launch functionality which is stored in DLL files. The parameter that typically, sorry, the DLL that you want to execute is a command line argument, right? So if you see run DLR32 running without arguments, this is suspicious, right? Also, you have here a note that says that CobbleStrike likes to use this specific process for process injection. And finally, you also have here the reference to the attack, MITRE attack framework, right? So it's about execution with run DLR32. Okay, we will continue with this, right? So we have one more behavior over here that talks about process injection, right? So apparently, the process that we are analyzing has injected into run DLR32. Okay, what is process injection? Okay, it's a way to execute code in the space of another process, right? And you know what? CobbleStrikes like to do that a lot, as many as also other tools for sure, right? But in this case, for this particular sighting, I think that we are hearing once and again, you know, information about CobbleStrike, right? So at the end of the day, this threat sighting is for a CobbleStrike sighting, right? Okay, we will move forward with this. Okay, next one. Okay, what is run DLR32 doing? Okay, here we have again a process activity event. Run DLR32 is creating an instance of DLL host. Okay, what is DLL host, right? So okay, it's part of Windows. It's intended to execute DLLs. And again, if you see this command line, which is has no command line arguments, again, this is kind of suspicious, right? So now at this point, our analyst has had a lot of exposure to this, let's say, to different steps and the sequence of steps, right? So the right question to ask at this point is, okay, what is DLL host about to do, right? Okay, and we will fast forward a bit. So DLL host has performed multiple DNS query events. DLL host has performed hundreds of network connections in the local network, right? And DLL host has created several files, several JSON files, and a zip file, right? So here you have the details about the activity, the file creation, and you have the parent process, and then you have nodes, right? So it says that Bloodhound is an Active Directory recon tool, right? Bloodhound outputs results as JSON files. Bloodhound can collect information about following objects: users, and you see here users.json, computers.json, right? And the final note says that Bloodhound has the capability to archive the collected data as a zip file. And you know what? Here you have the zip file, right? So all in all, and again, you have here the reference to the attack framework, right? So what has happened in this specific sighting is, okay, this is about discovery. So the main tactic here is discovery. In particular, this is automatic discovery with this tool called Bloodhound, right? And there is process injection and so on and so forth, right? So, okay, now the analyst, our analyst, which is new, can have a very nice, you know, idea of what actual automatic discovery is and how a threat actor managed to get to the point of executing this tool and getting, you know, information about the environment, which, by the way, is one of the things that we see once and again, right? So once the threat actor manages to start executing inside the, you know, victim's organization, most typically what they will do is to try to do some discovery, right? Okay, so let's come back to the original challenge, right? So now imagine that our analyst starts asking these questions, right? Has the LS host created other files? And she does this question because she's thinking about the JSON files, right? So here we have information about the zip file, but there were any JSON files? So interesting question, right? Or has the DLL host done network connections, right? Or has been injected, right? Or what is the parent process for the DLL host, right? So now, if we look at to the initial challenge statement, right? Now we can use that to, you know, rationalize the threat and create hypotheses and then questions in order to see if the hypothesis is right or no, right? Correct or no, or not, right? Okay, so enough with this challenge, and I feel that I would like to know how do you feel about this, right? But we feel that this can really help the blue team to feel empowered, right? Okay. This screenshot is showing threat sighting for Cobalt Strike. This is a YAML file, right? So this is a text file that you can, you know, edit with your, you know, editor, text editor, right? Nothing too fancy needed. It has a header that with some metadata about the specific threat sighting. It has a section with the behaviors, right? And there you can see, for instance, execution. One of these is what we covered today. And there is another one there for previous escalation, for instance, which is very common. And now imagine that as we learn more about, you know, what the threat actors are doing with Cobalt Strike, we can, you know, get new entries on this document and, you know, making it like a more, let's say, complex, because it will have more steps, but at the same time we capture, you know, more knowledge, right? And what we also have here, okay, we have a footer with references and some change tracking data, but we also have something that we call the hunting queries, right? So the hunting queries is, once you have the observables and the behaviors, right, you will be in the position of saying, okay, if I know this is suspicious, right, I can go and create my detection logic, right? And the detection logic in this case, we are using Sigma for defining the logic itself, but this is heavily based on the observation of the behaviors, right? So you have the document with all the you know, observables, and then you can say, okay, I will try this, right? So you start, you know, probably you start taking actions for threat hunting, for instance, right? So these are three examples, just three examples. The first one is focused on process creation events, and in particular, it's looking for parent-child relationship, right? So some of these we cover on the talk already. This other over here is about, we know that Cobalt Strikes likes to use services for execution, right? So here in this specific detection logic, what we are looking for is, okay, some specific strings that will appear on the bin path of the service, right? So I guess you are familiar now with this, at least with the second part of the logic over here, right? We have the admin dollar and the regular expression for the name of the file, right? And finally, this is a very simple query that we created based on the observation of the automatic discovery activity with Bloodhound, right? So at some point we saw that this file was being created, right? So we created a regular expression for that. Okay, so far we have introduced the idea of threat sightings. We have like kind of analyzed in detail some of the TTPs, but that, right, by the way, are very common. I mean, these TTPs are very basic, right? But are also, you know, useful, and we see this on real attacks, right? And also we saw how we transform the knowledge that we have from the observations into hunting queries, right? Okay, so now let's think a bit, okay, how do we create more threat sightings? So if we think this is cool, we can go and create more sightings, right? Or improve the sighting that we have, right? And of course, here is where we are going to go back to the community, and there are a lot of resources available for us. I am pointing here only 2 resources, but there are many others, right? So I like this in specifically these 2 because the level of details that you have. So you will find full command lines, you will find details about the file names, actually, every thread is covered with a lot of detail, right? So it is, let's say, quite easily to go and create a sighting once you have this level of detail, right? Okay. Of course, we also have InfoSec Twitter. Oh, let me go back. Yeah, so there is a lot of great people out there that is sharing their knowledge and insights about new threats or new TTPs. And so what I will do is I will use this for inspiration, and I will do threat hunting, and then maybe I will find something and I will document the threat sighting, right? This is more or less how it works. But yeah, so thank you everyone that is contributing into this with this type of knowledge. I think this is super useful, and I hope more people will benefit from this, right? So we think that the threat sightings can help to up level, let's say, the knowledge of the community, and also like connect the dots with this type of insights that we already have, right? Okay, this is one example of threat actor TA551, also known as SHATAC. So this is what they do a spear phishing email, right? Typically, what they will deliver is in this case, in this particular campaign, they are delivering an email with a zip file, right? And the zip file has a doc file, office file, right? And when the user is prompted to allow macros, and eventually that will trigger the execution of a LOLBAS called Mishta. And then apparently there is also that is gonna also trigger this other LOLBAS over here, right? And finally, what we can see is that at the end of the day, what is being distributed is Cobalt Strike, right? And in particular, there's specific details about how they do it in this campaign, right? So imagine that you can go, you get this this document, this YAML file, and you click on this specific sighting that you are trying to learn, and you get all the details that we saw in the previous slides, right? You will get the process activity with the genealogy, the command line details, if there is Windows registry activities or file system activity, everything will be documented, right? That's the idea. And so what we like about this is that we can share this with people that is not doing threat hunting, or is not doing SOC analysis. We can share this with engineers that are maybe developing parts of the tools that the Blue Team community then will use, right? Or maybe we can share this with with leaders that as a way of providing some threat intel in a way that they can get an idea of what this campaign is, right? And it's the same document that we can share with the threat detection engineering team, right? Because there is details that they can use, right? And it's the same document that we can share with several other parts of the organization in order to respond to something that is going on, for instance. Okay, we also have in this case some hunting queries that we created based on the observations, right? I will move forward to the next one. So in this example, this threat sighting is created based on the Hafnium threat actor. Hafnium was back in March. They started using some of the Exchange vulnerabilities and exploits, and what they did is they installed the China Chopper web shell, right? So in this sighting, what you will find is information about what the web shell is, right? And how you can leverage that for persistence, right? In particular, for the China Chopper web shell, you will find here several details, right? Here we have even examples of how they did credential dumping, or how they managed try to establish more channels for command and control, or how they install other payloads, right, with these other LOLBAs, right? So something important to mention that I forgot in the previous screen is that we also have the acknowledgement section over here, right? So in particular, this one is from the Rapid 17. The link is over here in the reference, right? And in particular, this is the author, Ion Miller. So thank you. The report. This report is great. Has a lot of detail, right? And the previous screen was about this Shatak threat actor. The acknowledgement goes to the malware traffic analysis.net page. This is a great resource, as we said before. Okay, so what else do we have here? Okay, this is something that I also use a lot. You can use Google and do something like this, like a site, any.run. So any.run is a sandbox detonation tool. You will find a lot of malware already detonated there, right? So you do not need to create your own report. Most likely you will find it already, right? So once you get to this type of solution, and there are many solutions for sandbox analysis, right? So this is just one, but I like this one very much. So what you will see there is the process hierarchy, command lines, right? This even is, you have even here like a tag, right? So automatically this is saying that this is call strike, right? But you can get an idea of, okay, here at the very bottom there is a suspicious PowerShell command, right? With a long string. You can get the string, try to decode it, and yeah, and you can also see here how the actual PowerShell got executed, right? It started with over here, right? Okay, so you can look at this type of information. You can create your own observations, and then you transform that into threat sightings, right? That's also what we are doing. Finally, of course, if you are having like a first-hand experience as an incident responder or malware analyst or as a SOC analyst, right, or threat hunter, it would be great if you at that position could go and create the threat sightings, right? That would be super awesome. Okay, so with this, we're gonna share. We are very excited about this. We're gonna share this repository with threat sightings. I think that at this point we have like 20 or 30 different sightings documented, right? And the idea is to publish this repository to the public, right? Very soon, in the coming weeks, I will say. And what you will find here is like a catalog of threat sightings, right? With the type of details I showed you before. And also, we will publish this as a GitHub repository, which will give us the opportunity, to make contributions, right? So you will, if you have a new sighting, or if you want to add something, or if you want to fix something, right? So the process will be in place in order to manage that, evolution and to make it grow, right? At the end of the day. Okay. We are also working on developing some tools to make right now what we are doing is we are developing the YAML files with a text editor. We would like to have some automation, right? We are thinking of extracting data from the data source and shaping it as a threat sighting, and then with the UI we can pick, okay, I am interested on this one, or you can pick what you want to have included in your threat sighting at the end of the day, right? And also, I think it will be very useful if you can extract information from the sighting and get it, to whatever threat intel platform you have, or you can pull information into the sighting from your threat intel platform, right? Yeah, so I think this is the last slide. This is a summary, right? So threat sightings is about knowledge, representation, it's about sharing, it's about the evolution of the knowledge, right? It's about thinking about the threats, getting to rationalize how the threat actor managed to execute automatic discovery. He needed to do something first, right? We know that. So what sightings can we create that show what are the typical ways to manage to execute a tool like Bloodhound, right? So I hope that you see the potential of this, right? And if you think of the type of details that we are adding into the threat sightings, this is very focused on actionability, right? Actionability is key here, right? We want this to empower people to take actions, right? So the threat action could be, the action could be, okay, create new detections, check if you have visibility, right? Do threat hunting, right? And probably some other things that the community will come out with, right? Okay, so finally, 2 final asks, right? So please share your feedback now in the Slack channels. We are gonna be posting some information on Twitter as well. We think that the beginning of something is important part of, right? So it's important to have the feedback from the community. And of course, if you are in the position that you are creating threat analysis reports and you are sharing that with the community, please include as much details as possible, right? If you are adding a command line, if possible, you please include the text of the command line instead of the screenshot, right? The same like with traditional IoCs, right? So if you put a hash or an IP or domain, you have to think that a lot of people will try to, needs to use that information. So if you can include the text, that will be very, very helpful, right? Okay, so this is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right, thank you, Alejandro. Awesome stuff. So I really like that presentation. It lines up a lot with the idea we were talking about yesterday of, cybalistics, as it was termed, and describing the tools that are out there. And I think where this really lends a hand to people is it gets at that critical issue of like, yeah, maybe we have the data and it says, oh, this is DLL, whatever, launching this and that, but that doesn't mean people are going to understand it, right? And so we have this training issue, and this speaks to like, all right, someone sits down day one, never seen that kind of alert before. How are they going to make the jump from it's a correct alert, but they need to know it's a correct alert, right? And having that documented is a beautiful way of doing it. And this system really puts like a taxonomy, and it really helps people, I think, understand the shape of the problem. Because when you're looking at this, you're kind of like, all right, well, I know I need to do it, but what's involved, right? Like, what does it look like? How can I use it for threat hunting? And so I think it's a really well thought out system for that kind of stuff. So yeah, really appreciate the talk. For everyone out there, check out that repo when it becomes available. Again, more sharing with the community. I love it, right? So awesome stuff, Alejandro. Thank you.
Thank you.